In my previous video, I went over different types of abandonment, which are, of course, product page abandonment, cart page abandonment, and the checkout abandonment. Now, over on that video, I showed a model from Wider Funnel that contained different elements. Now, many people probably are confused about what are distractions on the website and on e-commerce store in general. So in this video, I'm going to go over 7 distracting elements that kill your Shopify sales. And if you stick out to the end, I'll even have one bonus video or example for you as well. So without further ado, let's jump into this one. And we are going to go over this with examples in a very practical manner. So you can also fix and check your store for these different things. Before I do that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure to do that. Like the video if you end up liking it, etc., etc. And about me, I'm Samuel from growgurus.com. We help 7 and sometimes 8-figure clients get the most out of their existing e-commerce traffic. Now let's jump into this one. And the first one is additional/unnecessary menu items. So here's just an example of a store that also has like a home page and the catalog pages on their menu. Now what they could do is just focus on the sales pages. Now this is a little bit of a different example than most stores when you only have a couple of pages, but there's a lot of real estate here missed out. On a typical store, you probably have more of a discount menu where then people know that they can just click on the logo to get to the next homepage. So in general, you'd want to avoid layouts like this where you have the home right next to logo, because it's just going to be an attractive element to click on that often just gets people backward. If they really want to go to the home page, they can click on the logo. Otherwise, you'd want them to go to these more shopping focused pages. And it also saves space from your main menu real estate so you can focus on the relevant links. All right, next up we have homepage sliders that autoplay. So this is the traditional marketer's favorite, where you have multiple messages that you want to show, but you can't really decide which one is the most important or which one you would like to go with. So you just try to show them all. And generally people don't look beyond the first slide. They don't care to stop here. All it is produces distraction and it makes people a little bit anxious about shopping here because it's now a more challenging thing to do. Of course, things are always in flux, but it's good to keep in mind, for example, that even Netflix used to have a video background. However, they don't do it anymore, so they must have tested it out and figured out that the actual static one works best. Now, let's move on. There's a lot of reasons, of course, why carousels are a bad idea, and there's actually even like a site created around that. But basically, all the focus is on the first slide anyway, and it doesn't give user control, these kind of things. There's a lot of reasons for that. Similar to carousels, there's a lot of theme options that people want in their theme, and they actually incentivize theme developers to include those elements, even though they traditionally wouldn't be that good for optimization purposes. So let's jump into the next example. And this is social media icons on the product page. So generally, theme developers do include these because otherwise people might not buy the theme if they are not there. But we almost always find that they're good to remove because very few people share, tweet these products anyway. And if they do, you can have that happen in other ways, like they can do it manually. They can do it from the post-purchase email, those kinds of things. Now, there's a lot of research on this one as well. One famous case study is this one, where this store that sells more like manly equipment, they removed their social media icons and got a really good result. So they used to have these traditional buttons here. A little bit of a blurry picture, but it generally works because it has more focus then on the shopping, less focus on social media, these kind of things. So usually a good idea to get rid of those and just focus on the product. Of course, as a merchant, you'd like your store products to be shared, but it rarely happens. So that's mostly just holding people and making them distracted. Next up, number 4 is also from this store. So we have the common buy with PayPal, buy with Google Pay buttons, buy with Pay Now, and then the more payment options, the infinitely famous more payment options, which actually goes to the checkout. So once you click here, like it's a little bit of a thing where you probably expect a pop-up to state what are the available options. And now all of a sudden you get to the checkout where you can then also pay with PayPal. So notice how bad of a experience this is if you were just on the product page looking around and suddenly you're forced to check out. So definitely recommend removing that more payment options button. Also note that themes can only fit one payment method here. So now I refresh the page and it's buy with Google Pay. And of course, like very few people actually have Google Pay, but you might want to have it as an option on the checkout. However, now it's really shuffling it around and making it have a little dance. Whereas like it would have been better just to have the add to cart, and then people can select their payment method once they are ready to pay. So two big issues there. All right, moving on to number 5, which is badly implemented timers. So here we have one page, and you have one timer here, then you have deal of the day, and yeah, it's just a lot of urgency. It might work, but you can really test it out and see if it actually works for your store. One thing that it doesn't work for is the customer lifetime value. So if you're only planning to make one sale in your lifetime from the store, it might be profitable, but most of the time, this is not very useful for the person who is looking to come back and buy again. So there, most people are getting a little bit more smart about these things. And you can often just refresh the page and get the timer to go back to its original position. So urgency only works if people want the product. So you should probably focus more in this kind of case. The seller could focus on explaining the sizes, for example, that this t-shirt comes in. Right now it's just a headset t-shirt in black. So this is an example of where people might focus on gimmicks rather than a solid strategy on how to actually make their products attractive, etc. All right, here's another example then where we have the urgency timer. And notice how it's a lot of different moving elements here. And in general, this is just going to cheapen your brand. You might get those first-time orders, but again, like the lifetime value will be reduced. Let's look at a good implementation here, good example of a countdown timer. It can be very simple. So maybe not the best store itself, but order within this time to get it on X date. So those were some badly implemented timers. Let's look into badly implemented upsells next. So here is an example of one upsell. So in this kind of case, you buy a packet of dog food on a mini size. Would you like to have it added one bigger size as well? Probably not, because you chose the mini size to begin with that in mind, that you want that particular size. So think of a scenario where you have one small and one big one on your cart. That doesn't really make any sense unless you want it exactly like half a kilo and 1 kilo to combine to 1.5 kilo. But why would you want that? You probably have your size that you want to order with, and you chose this for a reason. Next up is for an older dog. So there's that kind of version of the product, which is also on a bigger size. So not relevant at all. Next up is for a cat. So this is my third one here. It's for a cat. So probably not very relevant for a dog owner, unless they also have cats, of course, which could happen, but most likely they don't. And then there's some prescription type of product here that doesn't really make any sense, isn't that clear, etc. So here you basically wasted 4 upsell spots because you didn't really think it through. The upsell text here doesn't make any sense. Get upgraded for your kitten at 30% off only today. So these seem to be like normal price products, so that doesn't really make any sense. There's no 30% discount here. Then if you look at the visual hierarchy as well, you have the add to cart that are taking most attention. Show more items, perhaps the second one. And then the checkout is the last one. It almost looks unavailable unless you add something to the cart. So yes, pretty bad implementation here in terms of this particular upsell. And here I can show you some other examples. And again, same principle applies. You need to think through the products that you would be pushing. But at least they show the discounts here, and it is a clear thing that you have this as a bulk thing. And of course, then you need to think of the original value of the product and to make the upsells make sense there. But yeah, it just shows that even if you have the right principles or the right software, you still need to use them right. But in general, this is a good example of the app that could work or upsells. It's not distracting, it doesn't get into the user's way, and you can put supplementary products with that. So if you buy a bike of this color, this lock of this color might be pretty interesting to you as well. Anyway, moving on, here's some others. So you have a product page, and then you have some suggestions here underneath. All right, let's move in the next one, the last one before the bonus one. Cart-based instructions. Very common to see this one as well. Is that you have your shop buttons here under the checkout. Now, if you were to just have people click on the proceed to checkout or checkout, they would be able to select them on the next step. Now they have to make a choice, and they would have to make this choice without knowing the full available options. So here, it's a very common thing that you see in most stores, most starting stores at least that haven't fixed this yet. So here's how you can do it instead. Just have people call the first payment page, and then you can have your payment options there. If they don't want to use any of those, they can select the OR option, which is obviously a card payment. So those were the 7 optimization tips here. Let's jump into the bonus one, since I always want to over-deliver on these videos. You can have the continue shopping button. On most themes, you have it pretty prominent. And here, why would you want people to go back to your store and get? So instead of doing that, you can take inspiration for Gymshark. So what Gymshark has done is that they have an auto update here for the quantity field. So you can just select your quantity and it will auto update for you. So you don't need the update cart button. Now for the continue shopping button, they have their main menus right here. So you don't need that either. People know that they can go to the main menu and continue shopping from there. With regards to the payment options, they have them right here. So you don't need the buttons underneath. And they do actually have the continue shopping button here as well. But it's quite difficult to spot because it's right there. Unless you really look for it, you are not going to find it. Also note that they have also done an interesting thing here with the footer. Not sure if that's like a bug or a particularly thought out implementation, but it is a case where they are definitely minimizing the distractions as said in this video. So thank you very much for watching, and there is definitely one step on the buyer's journey where buyers don't need any kind of distraction, and that is the checkout. So what I'm going to do here is link this ultimate checkout guide below, so you can check it out. It's my magnum opus, the best video on the channel, so take care and have a good one. Thanks.